Okay, sorry about the delay, everyone. We had some technical problems. Had to restart my computer. I've got it frozen in carbonite now so that it doesn't overheat, and we are running some TwilioQuest. This is a sort of old school JRPG, thinking like Super Nintendo era, those old Final Fantasy games, Chrono Trigger, Earthbound, that sort of thing. If you're familiar with that, then this will also be familiar. Except in those games, most of the challenges were like you go into a battle and you're faced with some enemies and you pick from a menu to decide what you want to do. In this game, instead, you are writing code, and then you come back into TwilioQuest, hit a button, and it checks to make sure you did what it wanted you to do. It is a pretty cool thing, and I'm here with a good friend of mine, Bradley Surlis. And we're just going to play through some of this and go through some of the challenges. And also, we're going to be watching the YouTube chat, so if you have any questions about this game, about one of the challenges, or about something else code-related or related to your development career, feel free to, life, if you want to just ask us about pizza or something like that. I'm probably not the guy to ask about that, but maybe Bradley can chime in. Yeah, so feel free to ask anything you want in the chat. We'll be doing that too. And I think that's going to be, honestly, a lot of the value of this stream. But we'll do some code too. The first thing it wants us to do here is to set up our node environment. If you don't have node installed, this is going to be just installing node. And when you click Let's Do It, they even give you a link to go and download the latest node and install it. And once you have it installed, you're going to paste the path into this text field right here. I already have it installed, so that's going to be pretty quick for me, and I'll show you a cool trick for how you can get that path. Alright, I am here at my terminal, and I'm actually going to back out to my projects directory, because we're going to be creating a new directory later that we will use to store all of our code for TwilioQuest. But for now, all I need is the path to node on my system. And to get that, I'm going to type which node, and it's just going to spit the path out for me. And I'm going to copy this and paste it right into that field. Now we click the hack button, which means I'm done, and it will check, and it looks like it likes that. So we are good there. Let's keep going. Also, if anyone has any issues with the audio or video, let us know. We may or may not be able to do anything about it, but we will at least try. Alright, so here's the step I talked about earlier. We're going to be creating a folder, and it doesn't matter what it's called or where it is. We just have to put that path into this field. So I'm going to flip back over. I'm going to do this in my terminal. You can do it in Finder or in Windows Explorer, whatever GUI you want, or you can do it in the Windows command prompt, wherever. It doesn't matter where you make it, just as long as you get that path into TwilioQuest. So I'm going to do it here with makedir, and I'm just going to call it TQ. And I don't have to do this for the game right now, but I'm going to go ahead and switch into that directory so that I can work in that directory later. Oh, and I need the path. Oh yeah, so if you did switch into the directory, a cool trick you can use to get the path, I think it's CWD, nope, PWD, yeah. PWD will give you the current path that you're in. You can only do that if you've switched into your new directory. So let's try this. Alright, TwilioQuest likes it. Now we can go down this hallway and get to this scientist. And I'll just summarize what she says. I ran through this one earlier. She left the passcode for something in her office and also has tripped all the security measures to keep her out of her office. So she wants us to go in there and grab that password. I think it's back this way. So I'm going to go start here. Placate a low-level bureaucrat and execute your first JavaScript program to bypass this barrier. Now we are into the actual code. Okay, we're going to create a JavaScript file called sayplease.js, and that's going to be inside our folder, and it even reminds us what that is here. This is all we want to do. In fact, it wants us to just copy and paste this right in. So let's switch over here. I've also got my editor, and I'm going to open. You may or may not be able to see this. I'm only capturing part of the screen. Yeah, here we go. Okay. And now I'm just going to open that directory in code. Okay. Here we are. We have the Explorer. The directory's empty, so there's nothing there. And what's the file name? Say please. Okay. Sayplease.js. All right. So we're just creating an empty file in our folder for TwilioQuest, and it's called sayplease.js. And now I'm just going to paste in that code they gave me earlier, and then save it. And what this will do, this is a call to console log, and we're passing in a string. So if you ran this in Node, it would actually just log this string out to the console. Let's tell it we're done. All right, 100 XP. Let's go on to the next security door. Now we're learning to declare variables. Starts you out with really basic stuff. And actually, I don't know where it goes from here. I am coming in partly blind. Okay, laser configuration.js is the file we want to create, and then we are declaring a variable with the name laser status, and we're giving it a string value of off. Let's see about doing that. Let's see now, this is the way my memory works, which is to say not at all. Laser configuration.js, okay. All right, there we go. And laser status, I think I can remember off, hopefully. All right, we're gonna declare a variable. I like to default to a constant unless I know I need to be able to reassign the value. But in this case, I don't think I will. And I believe that's all we need. A constant named laser status, and the value is off, a string off, all uppercase. Let's make sure. Looks like that did it. We're moving right along. Hey, Bradley. He must have stepped away. Oh, you're here? Okay. I wondered if you would be comfortable talking about your recent employment experience just in very vague terms. Just like some things you learned that were unexpected or something along those lines. If you're not, that's okay. Sorry, putting you under the microscope here. Yeah. 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 Yeah, so you were... Yeah, that's good. You were kind of thrown more into the deep end than you expected. Yeah. Alright. I did another challenge. They just wanted us to create some variables. That one was pretty straightforward, and it looks like we passed it. Also, I should have mentioned much earlier that for every time I fail one of these challenges, I'm going to be tracking that, and I will donate $10 to the NAACP Legal Defense and Education Fund. So hopefully I'm a lot more careful than normal, or else my bank account is going to look very sickly tomorrow. Yeah, I'm sure we will get to some. Talk for just a second about anything, Bradley. We're trying to... Yeah. You're... I'm hearing you. I'm gonna try to get this audio fixed. Yeah, it sounds like you're not coming through. Let me see what I can figure out on that. I'm not sure. I've got a computer audio source, and you are coming through my computer audio. Yeah, Marius just posted and said the same thing. Maybe I'm the only one who can hear you now, just in life. Actually, I've just come up with a scarier possibility than that. It's that you only exist in my mind. I've completely fabricated Bradley. Yeah. Yeah, apparently that's the case. I don't see any reason here that you shouldn't be coming through, unless it's just something with Discord. Do you mind if I try calling you on FaceTime audio again? Or actually, do you want to? Why don't you try to call me on FaceTime audio, and I'll try to answer it on my computer and see if that works. Okay, we're gonna try and try another method of getting Bradley's audio in here. And in the meantime, I'll take a look at this challenge. Divide by 2.js. Okay, let's try this. The first one just didn't ring on my computer for whatever reason, so... Alright. Anybody that's watching, let us know in the chat if you are hearing Bradley's audio. This has just been an ill-fated stream on so many levels. Alright. I'm going to try this divide by 2. Have you gotten to this one, divide by 2? You probably went to the tutorial, maybe. Alright. This script should take the number passed in, divided by 2, then print the result using console.log. Okay. Okay, this one's taking a command line argument. If you have watched my node series, then you are aware of how to handle that. And now the question is, am I aware? So let's create a constant called number. And we're going to give it the value of process.argv. And I think, let's see, I think it's the third item in that array is your first argument. Because the 0 index is node, the 1 index is your script, and then the 2 index is your first argument. I believe that's right. Okay, and then I just want to console log that number divided by 2, except I need this to be a number, so I'm gonna call parse int and pass this in to make sure that it gets parsed as an integer. If I don't do that, it's going to come in off the command line as a string, and then it's going to try to do this math on a string, and that's not going to be good for anybody. Talk a little bit, and I want to see if the thing bounces. Talk a little bit, Bradley. I'm not sure. Nobody's saying anything in the chat right now, but I have a feeling you're still not coming through because I'm not seeing the equalizer doing what I think it should. But hey, we're just gonna power through here. All right. I think that's just done. Let's try it out. Is this going to be my first donation? Oh, cleared it. Okay. Cleared it. Okay, we're at the lady's desk. Okay, the stasis beam password is pew 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 with an exclamation point at the end. Okay. It is. Hopefully they don't expect me to actually remember that. Hopefully my character knows it, and that will be enough. Yes, thankfully that is the case. Okay, and she's going to send us into this room to solve a problem in here, also with JavaScript. Not in the room, it's just this little cannon that's supposed to be shooting into this crystal, I assume. Okay, we're on the verge of an explosive discovery. What do they want us to do? Oh, okay. I just have to enter the password. Okay, we activated the cannon, and now the whole lab has blown up. The floor of the lab is gone now. Use the botanist activation code and your knowledge of Boolean logic to enable this beam. You examine the controls of this stasis beam, but they're currently locked down. You'll need the botanist access code in order to enable this laser. The botanist is most likely in the lab's south wing, where they had previously been studying the effect of ductypium on plant life. Speak to the botanist to receive the access code for the beam. Okay, so I'm not prepared to solve that yet. Let's go try to find this botanist. Oh, okay, he's stranded over there. I'm gonna ask for his access code. Alright, he's telling us a lot of stuff here, and we're in a hurry, so we're gonna try to rush him. And he's having none of that. He's very verbose, this botanist. He wants me to come over there and help him, and the floor is just gone, so I don't know how that's gonna work. Alright. Conditional logic. Yeah, we can write conditional logic. Okay, I think we just end this conversation, and maybe we need to go here. Are you at least able to see this on stream? Okay. And it's not misbehaving too badly. Can you hear yourself on the stream? Okay. Alright. Oh, okay. Alright, we're gonna write an if statement. We're starting to get stuff that's a little bit more involved. Yeah, I think it's got other modules too. Like, I think there's PHP in there and maybe some other stuff. But yeah, this part specifically is really just writing node scripts, which is fun. This one takes a single argument. If the argument is extend, then I use console log to say extending bridge. And if the argument's not extend, I don't do anything. Okay, so that should be pretty easy. Actually, that's what I want to do. I'm gonna go grab one of these others. The divide by 2. Actually, I'll just get line from it, since I also need to grab a command line argument here. We'll just call this command. And we don't need to parse this as an integer because it's actually a string. Now, if command equals extend, then we want to log out this message that we are extending the bridge. And I think that's it, because we don't want to do anything else otherwise. Oh, had an extra E in there. That was a $10 E right there. All right. No, I didn't check it. To be clear though, even if by some miracle I don't make any mistakes over the course of this stream, I'll still donate something. Let's set a baseline of like 50 bucks. I'm gonna donate 50 bucks. But hopefully I can screw up a little more than that, get to some harder stuff, and do even more. Oh yeah, this is interesting. So this one's not a coding challenge of any kind. You just click hack, and then they plant a tree to try to help reforest Australia. So there we go. There's that. Oh, and in the game it plants a little tree in this little compartment. What's over here? Extend the east bridge. Now we have to use an else statement. I'm just going to duplicate this whole file. Oh, we don't want that on there twice. We don't want the extension twice. Bradley, if you want to drop off, you can. You don't feel like you have to stay on here for another hour. I don't have a great idea about how to bring your audio in. As far as I can tell, everything is in place that you should be on here, but obviously you're not. Another cool thing to note is that we had originally intended to have a donation tracker to keep track of all my flubs and the amount I was going to donate. And Bradley built that in JavaScript, and it was amazing. And then my computer could not contend with everything I was trying to do with it. Okay, what am I doing here? This program will take a single command line argument, a single digit number, indicating the life status of the tree. Okay. So if the status is 0, the tree is alive. If it's, it looks like if it's anything else, it is other. Okay. We'll call this yeah, if it had Bradley just commented that if there had been more different cases, this could have been a switch statement. It might have been a nice use for a switch statement, but really there's just one and then an else, so if else is probably right. Or you could use a ternary. That would work. Also, I'm going to go ahead and parse int on this because I'd like to be able to... Actually, no, I don't. If it's a 0 string, then that should be fine. So let's check for tree status equals 0. Oh, as a string, a 0 string. Then we are logging the tree status. Is that what's happening? Yes. We're logging the tree status. So here it will log alive. And then in every other case, it will log other. Okay. Let's try that. Alright. I honestly, even though these are not super hard, I usually forget really simple stuff, so I'm very surprised that I've gone this long without missing anything. I should check out the Flame of Open Source mission to help me burn through this bush. Okay, so apparently I'm going to get a flamethrower at some point, and I'll be able to burn bushes. That's kind of cool. It's got sort of a Metroidvania vibe, collecting items to open up new areas of the map. Learn to branch conditional logic in different directions. Okay, this is going to theoretically get us to the botanist. Yeah, here we go. This one has multiple cases. I could try a switch statement in this. That's almost guaranteed to elicit a donation because I hardly ever remember how to write a switch statement. Okay. I'm just gonna... Yes, I'm gonna try not to use Google. Not that there's anything wrong with it. I'm just gonna try not to. Also, that increases the chances that that I will add to my donation. Okay, so this is not our command. This is our... This is still our... No, this is not a tree status anymore. What is this? Tree life detector. Oh, okay, so this is still tree status. We're just detecting more different potentialities, I guess. Okay, so switch tree status, and I'm gonna say case. What are the different cases again? 0, 1, 2, and then everything else. So 0, going to console log alive, and then break. This is something you have to do in a switch statement unless you want to run everything for the first case. Case 1. Bradley's asking if anyone else is playing. Anyone else playing along with the stream? Status 1 is flowering. Also break here. And this is our final case, shedding. And now we have a default, which I think is just that. And that's going to be other. And that one doesn't need to break because there's no more code after it. So there's nothing else that could be executed. Yeah, I think this should do it. Let's try that. Success! And we have reached our scientist, or botanist. Now that we are face to face with him, he will give us his access code. I hope he gave us the access code. Hope we didn't do all that for nothing. Alright. Here's the botanist activation code. Alright, we're going to sort strings in alphabetical order. It will take 2 arguments. Each one is a string. And then we're gonna print -1 if the first argument is earlier in the alphabet. We'll print 0 if they're the same, and 1 if the first argument is later. Let's grab the name of this. We'll just call these word 1, which will be process.rv index 2. and word 2, which will be at index 3. And I think we can just, use greater than or less than to compare strings. I guess we'll find out. If word 1 is less than word 2, then that's going to be -1, I think. Let me make sure. The first argument is earlier. Your script should print -1. I think that's right. Okay, so else if word 1 is greater, word 1 greater than word 2, console.log 1, and then the only other case is that they're equal, so that will be 0. Let's try that. Oh, there's $10. Donation. I am making a note here. All right. $10 on the board. Your script must print 0 when the first argument passed to it is the same as the second argument. Ignoring letter case. Ah, that's the part. See, when you don't read this carefully. Did it say that? Oh, well, I guess it's alphabetically, so that's implied. Okay. And what are we going to do here? I think we're just going to 2 lowercase on each of these arguments. Just call that method and assign that to the variable. I hope that will work. 2 lowercase, and now compare them. I think that should work. Let's try it. All right, that worked. Okay. Now we're learning to create a function. Okay, this is the name of our file. This function determines if the barrier's lasers are on or off. Create a JavaScript function called getLaserSetting, and it just should return a string object with the value of off. Seems pretty straightforward. Let's make a new file here. Laser function, and the function name is getLaserSetting. I'm going to do this. I think that's a function declaration. I always get those mixed up. Pretty sure that's what it is. Okay, and it's just going to return a string with the value of off. Let's try this. Yes. Learn to create a function that accepts arguments, so your reusable bits of code can produce different results with different inputs. Okay. Now we need this file, polite lasers. Create a function called getLaserSetting. Okay. If the argument is please, return the string off, otherwise return the string on. Okay. And this is going to be the first argument that we care about. And all we care about is whether or not it's please. Okay, so we're going to call this parameter magic word. Seems appropriate. Guy, are you in the process of installing Node? Is that the part of the setup you're on? Oh, okay, we're not logging, we're returning. A string. Was it all caps? Yeah. Okay. Ah, you're going the Python route. Python is a lot of fun. I really enjoy writing Python. One thing I'm going to do on this one that I would like to point out is I'm not writing this as an if-else, and the reason I can do that is because when you return out of a function, none of the other code in the function gets executed. So with this if statement, if magic word equals please, then we're going to return off, and then that's it. That's the end of this function. If that doesn't happen, then JavaScript's going to evaluate this condition, magic word equals, so it'll skip this line altogether, and then it's going to come down here and return on. So effectively this is an else, but it's just not an explicit else. It works because of the way that functions work and that returning works. Return gets you out of the function and returns a value back to wherever the function was called. Let's see if that works. Success. Nope. So far still at 10. So I'm not, my accountant will be pleased. Alright. One cool thing to note about this game is this is all running in Electron. This whole game is built on web technologies. So if you learn how to do web development, how to build web pages, how to write JavaScript, you could potentially build something like this. And if you're... How did I find that out? Bradley's asking how I found out that this is built in Electron. It's kind of an assumption, but I'm pretty sure. I don't know if you noticed earlier, but I was trying to click on the hack button and I accidentally had my left palm resting on the trackpad, which created a right click, I believe, and then I got a context menu with a copy option, and I don't think a game written in anything else would do that. So that leads me to assume that I was actually on a web page. I can't even replicate it. Oh yeah, look at that, save image. If I right click on this button at the top, I get a save image. That's not something you would expect to get from a game. And I'm pretty sure that's just because we are in Electron here. Yeah. It's pretty neat what you can do with JavaScript. There are a lot of games on Steam actually that are running on Electron. So you can actually make money building games in web technologies. Use the electrical engineer's activation code and your knowledge of loops and iteration to enable this stasis beam. Let's give it a shot. Oh great, okay, we gotta find the electrical engineer in the east wing of the lab, and then we come back. East. It's gonna be this way. What's up here in all these boxes? Nothing. Arrays are a common data structure you'll encounter while programming. In order to navigate this freighter, you'll need to learn how they work. Gonna go create this file. Anybody who is watching right now, I would love to hear about what you're doing for fun recently. You too, Bradley. Feel free to share if you've got something. I will relay it. Bradley is ghosting for fun. Ghosting the stream, not intentionally. Alright, here they want us to create a variable named inventory that contains the 5 strings of text described in the objective. Okay. Okay, this seems pretty straightforward. We're just creating an array with these 5 strings, and that's going to be in our inventory variable. These square brackets are the JavaScript array notation. Now I'm just going to paste those. Oh, maybe I can't paste them. Let's try it again. Yeah, there we go. Just going to paste those in, and I just need a comma at the end of each one. You need commas between our array. Let's save that. And I think that's it. Success. Alright. It seems to be running much better now. Add first to last. We want a function with the same name as the file. This function takes one argument, an array of, and it should return a string which is the first and last items in the input array concatenated together. Okay. It's not too bad. I'm gonna name our parameter string array. I might be able to do this, well, I can definitely do this in just one line. Let me try that and see what it looks like. String array. Index 0 is going to be the first one. And then I'm going to concatenate that with the last one. And the easiest way, I think, to get that in Python... Actually, Guy, if you're still around, Python would be really cool for this exercise, because I could get the last item using a -1 index, but JavaScript doesn't do that. It doesn't allow me to do that. It does have a slice method that I think could be useful here. it's a method, so I'm not actually using an index. I'm just slicing, and I think that's going to give me back an array though. It's just going to be an array with one item. So I'm going to grab the 0 index in that array. Yeah, yep, sorry Bradley. Yeah, I could do that too. That's another way. Let me just show that on another line. So the way I did it is one way alternative, which is to use string array dot length minus 1. So that will also give you the last index of the array, the last item in the array. And the reason it does that is because the length of the array starts counting at 1, but the indexes start counting at 0. So by subtracting 1 from the length, you are indexing the very last item. All right. So yes, that's also a viable way of doing this. I'm going to comment that out for now and try mine and see if it works. I think it has the greatest likelihood to fail of those. But let's see. Oh, did I return it? Yeah, I did return it. Okay. Oh, failed. Yep, there's another $10. I need I need a cash register sound effect. If we had had a lot of extra time to work on that donation tracker, that was going to be my next feature, was a cash register sound effect when you increment the donation amount. So what have I done wrong here? Add first to last, return not a number instead of the expected value. Maybe I should actually read this instead of just like skimming it. Sticking the first and last items of the array together. You need to get this function working properly before you can enter the infinite loop. Define a function of the same name. Should take one argument, an array of strings. Oh, interesting. Yeah, I didn't read this carefully. Well, no, that would still work. That one would still work. This one, would that work? That's an empty array. I don't think that one would work in mine. So that's probably the failure case we're looking at. What would that do? Yeah, I don't think that's going to work at all. Let's just write a special case for that. So if string array.length, we do this, and that really means if string array.length is something more than 0. Also, I need to spell length right. So if the length is more than 0, then it's going to add the first and last item together. That should work even if the first and last item are the same because they're only a single item. And then in any other case, we're going to return an empty string. Okay, let's try that. I'm not super confident. All right, that one did it. Still at $20. Oh yeah, this thing's struggling now. I think it's these laser beams. It must take a lot of resources to drive these laser beams. Yes, the laser beams are apparently slowing the game down. Learn to split arrays into multiple arrays and to sort the items within. Oh boy, this sounds like we're gearing up for another donation here. Let's see. Create get first amount sorted. And a function of the same name. Alright, let's see what this does. Create a function called getFirstAmountSorted. This function will take 2 arguments. The first argument should be an array. The second argument should be a number. Your function must do the following. Begin by sorting the input array into alphabetical order. Once the input array is sorted, return a new array, which is the first n elements of the input array, where n is the value of the second argument. Okay, so I'm assuming it wants them back sorted. So we sort them first, and then we only provide the number it's asking for. Okay, this is another good use case for slice. I'm going to call this array to sort and items. No, I don't like that. Number of items. Okay. We're going to sort it alphabetically. I think just the sort will do that. But to sort in place. I am not very confident at all about this one. I'm going to actually do some experimentation here, because this could, this one could like pay my rent if I'm not careful, or not pay my rent rather. Okay, we're inside Node. Just so you know, if you have installed Node, you can just type Node in your terminal, and you can get this Node REPL, and you can just type JavaScript code in here, and it'll evaluate it for you. It's a nice way to kind of experiment a little bit. So I'm gonna just imagine we've got, if I put them in order, it's not gonna be much of a test. Okay. I'm gonna imagine we've got this array, and what happens if we call sort? It returns that, but I don't think it sorts them in place, although the test I ran is not a good way to verify that. Let's say let t equals, I'm just gonna give it this value. Okay, so now we have t.sort. Okay, so there's the sorted array. Now what is t? T is sorted. So here's what this means. The sort method sorts in place. It modifies the original array. It doesn't return a sorted copy. Is there also a sorted? No, there's not a sorted. So apparently that is the way sorting, the sort array method works in JavaScript. And I had just forgotten. It sorts the array in place. So it modifies the original array. That means we can do array to sort dot sort, which now makes this name obsolete because the array is now sorted. The array to sort is now sorted. Okay, and now we want a number of items from it. And to do that, we can slice, call that other number of items. think this should work. Slice makes a copy of the array with the number of items you specify, the number of items you pass in on the argument. Or, like we did before, if you pass in a negative value, it will start counting from the end. This starts counting from the beginning. This will be presumably a positive number, and it'll start counting from the beginning of the array. Let's try that. Nope. Returned third instead of expected value first, second, when called with parameters first, second, third, 2. It returned third. I'm not clear on why it would do that. Let's confirm that slice does what I think it does. Oh, also, cha-ching. It's another $10. All right, we're up to 30 now. Okay. So we've got T. T is sorted. Slice. What if I wanted 2 of those? Would that work? No. Aha. So this is my problem. I need to pass it 2 values, the starting value and the ending value? Yes. Okay. All that stuff I said about the slice method, all lies. Not intentionally, but all lies. You pass it 2 values. The first value is the first index you want as part of the new array, and the last value is the index beyond, or the number, it's the number of items, or you can think of it as the index beyond, whichever, same thing. But yeah, it takes 2 arguments. It only works, I guess it only works with 1 argument. What is it? Yeah, with 1 argument it's just giving you a single item. Oh, okay, if you give it just 1 argument, it is starting from that point and giving you everything from there on. So if we said T slice 0, that would be a copy of the same array. So a copy of the array with all the same items. And that is why the negative values still work, because we are counting from the end there. If we did -2, yeah, that would give us the last 2. Okay. Okay, now I'm straight. Now I am straight. So we need a 0. We need to pass a 0 here because we want to go from the first item in the array to whatever our number of items is. Let's try this. Success. Alright. Yeah, this thing is really chugging with these lasers. Lasers would use up a lot of CPU, I guess. The electrical engineer is trapped behind the security barrier. Solve the puzzle of the infinite loop freighter to free her. Oh, this looks... The barrier requires a special 6-letter master password. The clues you need to decipher the password can be found by exploring... Oh, that's okay. By exploring the rest of the ship and hacking into the security nodes present in the ship's 6 secure cargo holds. Once you've hacked all 6 security nodes, you may return here and attempt to guess the password. Wow, okay. 6 characters long. Each character in the password can be found in the following 2-dimensional array. Each security node inside the freighter contains an index within this array for 1 character in the password. The index will be given to you in the form of x, y, where x is the numerical index of the row character is in, and y is the numerical index of the column the character is in. Here are the indexes you have found so far. None of them, because I haven't been to any of those, whatever they were. proliferator, oh, security nodes. Let's leave this for now and see if we can find a security node. Maybe we can get this laser off the screen too, so that it'll actually move at a reasonable rate. Were you gonna ask something, Bradley? I'm sorry. Okay. This strange room displays a number, just like the numbers outside the security cargo holds on the ship. I wonder if they're connected. I should take a walk around this room to see what happens. Oh. It seems to be opening those rooms, maybe? Yeah. Yeah, it's opening these rooms. Okay. This is gonna take some work. I'm gonna circle this back around to 1. Oh, it's not doing it. Okay, there we go. 5. Okay. Now the first one. Oh wait, there's also 0. How did I miss 0? Okay. We're gonna see how many times we can walk this pixely person. Okay, here we go, 0. Oh, wrong way. Here we go, here's 0. Frequently you'll need to execute a chunk of code once for each item in an array. This is accomplished by using a loop. Learn to use the array built-in function for each to accomplish this. We are looping. Freight scanner. In case you're watching and you're curious about this, I'm using Visual Studio Code, and I'm showing and hiding this sidebar with Command B. I assume it's Control B on Windows, but I have not really used this on Windows, so I'm not 100% certain on that. Okay, we need a function called scan. Your scan function must loop through all the strings in the array, which is coming in, and examine each one using Boolean logic. If a string in the array is equal to the value contraband, then you should increment a number which would represent the number of times you have found contraband. Once you have looped through the entire array, return the number of times you found the string contraband within the array. Okay. This, I think, would actually be the perfect use case for a reduce, but they want us to write it with a for each. So I will do that. I might actually go back and rewrite it and show you what the reduce would look like too. What's coming in? Array of strings. I'll just call it strings. Guy, if you're still around, how is the Python side of this? I'm gonna call this, I'm gonna call this words and word. Oh, and I'll need a variable. Let contraband equals 0 I guess I could say instances. Okay. Now if word equals contraband, then instances plus plus. And now we also want to return that, I assume? Return the number of times, yeah. So let's return instances. Going slowly. Sometimes that's the best way to go. Just take it slow. If you have any questions, feel free to pop them in there. I'm not a super Python expert, but I'm probably an intermediate level Python programmer. I might be able to help with something. I am a wizard of JSON. That's what I've been called. Bradley just reminded me of that fact over our voice call here, and yes, he is correct. Also, Time Lord. I don't know if you saw that tweet I put out, maybe. Yeah. I've manipulated time in so many different ways through code. Yes. A date manipulator. All right. We cleared it. Okay. Bradley asked if we wanted to take the last 10 minutes to chat. I would be happy to. But I may keep playing until somebody has something to say. And if they do have something to say, I'm happy to stop and give it my attention. You can't wind this back. I was hoping maybe you could wind it back. Well, I don't really need to take these in order. I'm not going to get through them all anyway. So let's just go to 2 and see what it does. Oh, also, I could even just revisit this and show you how I would have done this with a reduce, because I think that's actually the right array method for this problem. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to copy this whole thing and paste it in again, and I'm just going to comment, let's see, yeah, I'll just comment the old one out. And I'm going to show you what I would do to write this with a reduce. First, I could set instances to the value of the reduce. What the reduce method does is it iterates through each item in the array, much like a for each does, but with a specific purpose, that being to return a single value, and that is very broad. So that could mean a single object, it could mean a single array, and if you know anything about objects and arrays, you know that both of those data types can have multiple values contained within them. So that's perfectly fine to do with reduce, but it is only going to return one value. So that could be an array, it could be an object, it could be just a singular value like a string or a number. And here, what we were looking for is we were looking for a count of the number of instances of a word, and we're looking for a single number. So this is a great use case for reduce. The way you use reduce is in some ways similar to how you would use the other array iterator methods like for each that we used in the solution. Oh, I'm going to collapse this toolbar so we have some more room to look here. Yeah, so we're going to give it a function, and that function is going to be passed each item in the array that we're calling the method on. So that's all going to be pretty much the same. Now, one difference is there's an initial value that this starts with, and you can set that however you want. By default, if you don't pass your own initial value, by default it's going to be the value of the first item in the array. So if we were actually trying to accumulate all the things in this array, all the strings in this array into something and spit that value out, then that default case would be good. But for us, we actually want to get a number out. So I'm going to set my default value as 0, or my initial value as 0. That, before we start counting, that is the number of instances that we are aware of is 0. So I've got my initial value, and now what this function is going to do is it is going to update that initial value. And also there's one other difference here. So in addition to the current value in the array, it's also going to be passed the accumulator, and this will be the value that comes out at the end. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to take, and if the word is contraband, I'm going to add 1 to my accumulator. I can do that with the ++ operator. And then you also, this is something that is easy to forget, you also have to return the accumulator out of this, and that becomes the new value for the accumulator next time around in the next iteration. And that should do the same thing as what we did before. It's a little harder to remember what the reduce does and how you use it, and I have to look it up almost every time. But it can be pretty useful in a lot of different cases. Once you can sort of recognize when you've got a reduce use case, and that's just when you need to take an array and you need to spit one value out of it. I'm actually going to play with fire here. I'm going to go back to that value. Oh no, I'm not, because it locks me in here. How cruel. Okay, I was going to go back and try that one, that solution for the exercise, but it's not going to let me. So let's just do this one if we can. I'm not seeing any questions right now. I am periodically checking the chat, so if you have anything, feel free to drop it in there. And in the meantime, let's learn to filter JavaScript arrays. I'm going to create this new file, freightfilter.js, and I need a function called scan and filter. Just a quick aside, I did a lot of refactoring as I code, and for me, this name of this function would be, could be an indicator that I might need to refactor. In general, I think a lot of times you want functions to do one thing. So if you're naming your functions properly and you have an and in there, that could indicate that maybe your function is doing too much and needs to be broken apart. But we're just going to go with it here. This should take 2 arguments, an array of strings, and a string of text to filter out from that array. Your scan and filter function should use the array filter method for this purpose. Your function must then return the filtered array. Okay, so the app that consumes this function is going to pass in an array and then a value to be filtered out of that array. I'm going to call this values and blocked value maybe. I could just return this values.filter. This is similar to for each and reduce in that it's going to iterate through each item in the array. It's different in that it's your function, your callback function that you're passing in needs to return either true or false, or a truthy or falsy value. It doesn't have to be literally true or false. But if it returns a truthy value, then that value passes the filter, so that one comes through in the array that gets returned. If it returns false, that value gets scrapped, so that value does not end up in the final array that's returned. So what do we want to do here? We want to exclude the second argument. So if value equals, actually no, we could just return okay, we could return blocked value does not equal value. Oops. Here's what that's going to do. That's going to evaluate this condition. It's going to look at the current value and see if that's not the same as the blocked value, then it's in. It comes through on the output array, on the array that's returned. Which means the converse is also true. If it is the blocked value, it will not make it into the final array. This will probably be the last one I will do. So here we go. Fingers crossed. Ah, it's a success. Okay. We are good. Let's go back to this for just a minute. We got a couple more minutes here to burn. This is not the only way I could have done this. Some people might find this hard to read, and if that's you, no problem. Another way you could write it that would maybe be a little more readable is you could say if the value equals the blocked value, it needs to be blocked, and so I know I need to return false to block the value to make sure it doesn't make it into the array that's returned. And then in every other case, which means it's not equal, I'm going to return true. So those values are going to come through, and then that return statement I wrote before can go away. That should do the same thing. It's just a little bit more verbose, but maybe a little easier to read. So if you come upon this solution, that's also a perfectly reasonable solution. And just for the heck of it, let's see if we can test this again. Looks like we can. Alright, still works. And there are a bunch of other ways you could do it too. You could say, well, it makes more sense to me to start by returning true for anything that's not the blocked value, and then my else statement is going to be return false. Or you could use the tip I gave you earlier. If you remember that functions, once they return, they don't execute any of the rest of the code. So you could say, I don't actually need this else statement. I can just use this if the value is not the blocked value, I'm going to return true. And then if we get to this point, we know we can return false because this was not true. Let's try that one too. Yep, that one works also. Alright, I think that is it for me. Thanks for anyone who joined or anybody who's watching the VOD of this on YouTube after the fact. We had a bit of a rough go tonight, but I still think we pulled it off and it was a good time. And I look forward to seeing you in another video soon.